Yeah, that was actually, man. I'll tell you what, I'm starting my Facebook up, my live right now. So, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and welcome you to the show, Dawn. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing just fine.
I really appreciate you taking your time to come on. I hear you lucked out on the winter weather, which is great. We haven't, though.
Yeah, good luck with it. We've had our share up this way. Not so much this year, but other years we do.
Yeah, well, up that way, you get a lot more than we do. That's for sure. But I want to. You're in a snowbelt area, right?
Well, we're in kind of a nice area. We don't get much of the lake effect snow. We're just beyond where the bands usually come, so we get more cold than we do snow.
Okay. All right. Well, for those listening out there, I mean, who is Don Allison? Who are you, buddy?
Well, I'm been a professional journalist for a long time. Started out doing sports in high school. Started doing news when I was a college student, and I've been a daily newspaper editor since 1981.
Interesting.
And I'm semi-retired, still do some newspaper work, but I'm focusing more on book publishing.
Right, and my producer tells me that you used to be pretty skeptical of the paranormal, but something changed your mind. Now, what would that be?
Well, I'll tell you, I was very skeptical. I even had my own grandmother. Now, she's a Southern Baptist minister's wife. Told me about living in a haunted house in Louisiana where my grandfather had a church. And she used to tell me she would wake up, see a man in old-fashioned clothing standing at the foot of their bed. They'd make eye contact. He would disappear. They'd have their covers pulled off in the night. She told about having somebody sit on the bed, make an indention, only nobody was visible. And my own grandmother, I used to really doubt that. I never said it to her, but I used to think, gee, Grandma, you should lay off that spicy Cajun food before bed.
Right.
But my wife and I bought an 1835 house that we spent a lot of time restoring. We're living here now. Actually, I'm in my home office right now, but I've started having some strange things. Hearing footsteps when I knew I was alone in the house. Early on, I went to close the front door after one of my first days working on a project here, and the door pulled out of my hand. And stayed open where there was nothing that could account for that. And after a while, I kind of started questioning, if I, was losing it or just what was going on.
Right. Now, before we get, deep into, and I have to say, too, before I jump to that gun, I've been a firm believer of the paranormal now since I was a child. I grew up in a haunted house. I've had objects actually thrown at me. I've had voices yelled at me. You name it, I've had it done pretty much, except for I've never physically been touched by a ghost, but I've had things physically thrown at me, and there's multiple witness on things that took place in what we call now as the greenhouse. So, and being a paranormal investigator as well, doing stuff like that, I can tell you for sure that these things are real.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I myself have been touched here in the house and outside of the house. Never had anything thrown at me, but objects move, come up missing. Things that I know were a certain place show up somewhere else or disappear entirely. One time I had a workbench set up in the living room here, and I went to get my screwdrivers, and every single straight slot screwdriver was missing. The
Wow.
screwdrivers are still in place, and I eventually found them all scattered here and there, obviously places where I would not have been using them.
Right.
But
Like there was a case where my dad would be in the basement and, he'd be working out or whatever, and this old jewelry box would just start playing by itself, like, it's just the most eerie jewelry box. I'll never forget that. I've heard it myself. But before we get too deep into the show, explain to the people a little bit about Gettysburg. I mean, believe it or not, there are some people out there like, oh, Gettysburg, I think there was a war there or something, because we're going to be talking about your book and what you experienced in Gettysburg. So why don't you shed a little bit of light on that?
Well, Gettysburg was just probably pure hell for the people there, both the people who lived in the town and the soldiers who fought there. There were, more than 175,000 soldiers who fought there. 50,000 men were killed, wounded, captured, or missing in a 3-day battle. Just the energies there are pretty incredible. And even before I gave much credence to the paranormal, you feel there is an energy there.
I was going to ask you that later on. Is there an energy there? Do you feel something when you actually go there?
There definitely is in certain spots for me, and I can maybe get later into some of the connections.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I have found. There are connections that I was not aware of, and my experiences there made me aware of it. Some pretty profound connections, actually.
Right. Now, we know that you did write a book about Gettysburg. What made you want to do this? And when you went to write the book about Gettysburg, did it end up being different than what you originally anticipated it being about?
Yeah, the book, the title is I Met a Ghost at Gettysburg, and the title, of course, I developed the title. I want to get people's attention and get them to read the book, of course, but there is truth behind that statement. And I never intended to write a book about the paranormal. I would talk to coworkers and friends about experiences here at the house, and I'm talking, having a voice speak in my ear, radios turning on by themselves and turning to Cleveland Indian radio stations or radio games, broadcasts. I'm not even an Indians fan. I'm a Tigers fan, but anyway, I kept saying, no, I'm not going to write a book about this. I'm a journalist. People think I'm off my rocker. But my grandson and I made a trip to Gettysburg, and a couple of things happened there that just were very mind-blowing. Most particularly, he was 14 at the time, my grandson. We went there for the history of it, not for the paranormal, but I'd registered as a journalist, and they offered a few things to me that I could do to experience the variety of things there. One was a ghost investigation. So I tell Connor, my grandson, hey, we can do this. What's that? I think that's cool. He says, yeah, Grandpa, let's go for it. So I call up. The guy says, yeah, we'll go to Sachs Bridge. And I'm thinking, Sachs Bridge is an old covered bridge. I've seen it. I want to go somewhere on the battlefield or a field hospital or something. The gentleman says, no, you'll like Sachs Bridge. So we show up. Young investigator takes us out, shows us an array of equipment that we can use, including a spirit box.
Yes.
A2 meters. The spirit box was what really was the key here. But we had a laser grid, which really never showed anything. But I was disappointed. There was a fair amount of people there when we first arrived. We cross over the bridge and we go out into the fields, and the investigator was very good. Her name was Destiny Sanchez. She was very well versed in the history, and I had no clue that Sachs Bridge the area was one vast field hospital. The very worst of the wounded Confederates. They didn't think that they could take in wagons on the retreat were left there. Some of their badly wounded Union prisoners were left there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a learning experience for me. But as far as any ghost manifestations early on in this, there's almost nothing. We got like one tiny blip on one of the K2 meters with the ghost box. She had asked, can you tell us what color coat any of us were wearing? And we did get a clear blue, and I had on a blue coat, but I was rather underwhelmed. We go back to the bridge. Things are thinning out. We go back into the woods on the other side. At different points, Destiny and my grandson kind of jumped and were startled and said that they had seen shadows moving in the background, and that's common there. But I had seen nothing. Our investigation, it's now 11 at night, was it to be a 2-hour investigation. It's time to go. We finally had the bridge to ourselves, so we sat down, and Destiny starts asking questions, with the spirit box, and she says, anyone with us? We got a very clear 7, 8, 9, and I'm perking up a little, like, okay, well, what year is it? 1863. And, oh, okay, well, this is kind of interesting. Got a few things, and it's kind of dying off. So she goes to start the car. It was getting rather chilly. It was late March at this point. And I'm thinking, what if these really are spirits from 1863? I kind of drew on my background as a historian. I've written Civil War regional history books, and that is my specialty area. I thought, okay, do you like jokes? Got a very clear yes, sir.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, hey, this is kind of cool. I said, all right, do you like music? And the voice was so clear you could even sense almost an inflection where, he felt insulted. He said, of course. And my grandson really was quick thinking here. He said, can you play for us? And the voice is, absolutely. And we started to get guitar music coming over the spirit box. And I'm now at this point thinking, now how are they hoaxing me on this? Okay, they saw a journalist coming. They're going to, get some good publicity for the company out of this. And I am just racking my brain. How are they hoaxing this? But it seems so real. The investigator came back, and the music's playing, and I'll never forget the look on her face. Just her jaw dropped, her eyes were wide open, and this music kind of came and went. This was not, radio stations coming through by any way, shape, or form. These are several measures. Then we heard what sounded like a higher-pitched instrument. I thought a mandolin. Destiny thought, maybe a piano or something. But this was really good. Well, finally, it faded out pretty well. I said, wow, you're good. And the voice says, thank you. Says, can you play some more? Says, yes, sir. And we got more music, and even a harmonica joined in.
Interesting.
It was kind of mind blowing. I thought, how are they faking this? And then later on, after the music, the investigators asking more questions. And can you tell us your name? And it was hard to understand. There was a clear on. It was 3 syllables, like me, on. And then the third syllable sounded like a hard sound and an S, but we just couldn't make it out. This entity, she kept saying, can you enunciate more clearly? You could almost sense a strain in the voice, like this wanted us to know the name, but we couldn't quite make it out. Says, well, how old are you? 20, 20, 20, and then captain. And I'm saying, well, where are you from? What state are you from? And we couldn't really make it out. I'm start rattling off states, nothing. When I get to Ohio, we got a very clear yes, sir. And I said, oh, well, my grandson and Connor and I are from Ohio. And the K2 meters that Connor and I had both went to the top level and stayed there for several seconds.
All the way to red.
All the way to red, all the way to the top. And we could barely get a blip out of these things up until then. Destiny's did not budge, and she's right beside us.
That,
I thought was...
I have to, sit with you for a minute when you're talking about, how is somebody actually faking this? You're sitting there, you're mind blown, but yet, by the same token, there's no way that somebody's faking this. This is this is actually real. This is really taking place.
I mean, it's, and I instinctively knew that. I could sense that Destiny was very sincere see her. She obviously was taken aback by what was going on. And my subsequent research, when I got home, I started talking to people in the field, anybody I could think of, and to a person, everyone said, no, you can't broadcast to these. They're scanning radio stations. What happened to you is real. The fact that it happened, all of a sudden you got this wave of things, and then when it was done, nothing. But what really won me over, well, at the very end, we sensed the energy kind of waning, and Destiny said, were you hurt? And we got, and this still sends chills down my spine when I talk about it, this total scream of anguish, deep male voice, and then a woman crying. And at that point, I didn't have the energy left to do anymore. And ironically, another group had come in at the other end of the bridge, and we heard them starting to get hits on a spirit box. So we left. I asked Destiny, I just peppered this poor girl with questions.
Yeah.
Oh, this was real. I said, have you ever gotten music before? She said, no. I said, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this investigation? She said, like a 9.5.
Wow.
Best she had ever had. And boy, when I got home, another thing I'm real big on is the historical record.
Mm-hmm.
I researched, I thought, were there any Ohio captains killed at Gettysburg? Well, my research showed, yes, there were 7 of them. And one of them, I realized as soon as I saw the name, and especially when I saw what happened to him, that was our match. The name was Malin Briggs. The 3 syllables, the on. But the amazing thing was he was wounded on the first day's fight, taken captive by the Confederates. He may well have died at Sachs Bridge. He died on July 3rd, the final day of the battle.
Now, see, that's interesting. And one thing that always got to me was, why are they trapped or what? Why do spirits always seem to hang around the place where they met their demise, where they actually died, whether it be in a hospital or ghosts following their bodies to funeral homes? I mean, what do you think that's about? Why are they attracted to an area of significance, representing death?
Now, one of the theories that I've read, and it makes sense to me, is that ghosts tend to be the result of untimely deaths, sudden deaths, or someone with unfinished business. Actually, Malin Briggs was not 20 as the spirit had said on the box. He was 25, but still, he was a young man. He had a lot of life left to live.
Right. So what happened? You go home and start writing this book, or what really got you into this is what I want to do. This is this is definitely something that I want to do. I want to go a little bit more paranormal. When you're talking about like meeting the ghost at Gettysburg, are you talking about what you were just saying about?
Exactly. That was the event that led me to decide I need to write a book about the paranormal. I do address happenings at my house and things that kind of convinced me the intelligence of the spirits here in the house, which we still, we're living here and we still encounter things. Sometimes nightly for a week or 2 at a time. Other times we might go a couple months with nothing. But yeah, just the entire impression of that particular event, when I saw that name and what happened to Malin Briggs, that's when I knew this was the direction my writing is going now.
Right. So walk us through a little bit about that book. Is it like when they pick it up? First of all, where do they get it at?
You can get it if it's carried in some bookstores. It's widely available. If you go to a bookstore, they can order it if they don't have it on the shelf. You can get it at Amazon. You can also get it at my business website, which is www.fatedbanner.com. The book has its own website, www.imetaghost.com. Can be ordered any of those ways.
Okay. Now, when you say manor, is that Manner, or what? How do you spell that?
Banner, as in an old flag.
Okay,
And
okay. Nice.
it's a
So
publishing house.
when they open this book up, what can the reader expect? What are they in for? What kind of ride are they in for?
Well, I pattern it very much like I'm a writer of a column. It's on my mind. It's a weekly newspaper column. I've won a lot of Associated Press awards for it, and I just address whatever's on my mind. And I wrote the book very much like I approach my column. Like, this is what happened to me. You know, these loony things, these crazy things happen to me in my house. I'm cutting wood in my living room to replace floorboards upstairs and my radio. Every time a loud rock song comes on, the radio turns off. And after the third time, I just get frustrated and I just speak out loud and I say, look, I like this music. Leave my radio alone.
Yeah.
So the next rowdy song that comes on, actually the song was Elton John's Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting.
Okay.
The radio didn't turn off. My generator outside that was powering the radio turned off. I just had to laugh.
We got someone in the chat room asking, what does he do to stay connected to the crazy? You want to elaborate a little bit on what you mean by crazy, or we got a wild group tonight, man. We got some wild people out there tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's okay. I rather embrace what's going on in my life. What I have found out, I was very lucky last fall to be invited to an investigation at the Fairfield Inn near Gettysburg. It was a Confederate field hospital.
Okay.
The acquaintance of several mediums, and I have found out talking with them how things work, and looking back at my life, that I have a bit of that connection that I never really appreciated.
Okay.
And I'm very big on hunches or feelings. I've had several at Gettysburg, and we have a spirit that likes to walk around our room at night. We hear the footsteps. We believe it's a child. We think we know who it is, although we're not positive. She likes to play with things.
Okay. Do you feel...
Yeah, there's a connection there pretty regular in my life.
Right. Do you feel more connected to spirits now, ever since your experience at Gettysburg?
I really do. The other event that happened at Gettysburg on the same trip as the Malin Briggs encounter with the spirit box, backtrack a little bit. My wife and I had an odd experience at the Alabama Brigade Monument on the Gettysburg field. My mom is from Alabama. I have a number of ancestors who fought in Alabama units. I did not know of any that had been at Gettysburg. They were all further west that I was aware of. Stopped. We're coming up to the Alabama Monument. The song "Sweet Home Alabama."
Oh, wow.
Radio.
Nice.
I didn't think much of it at the time. I pulled the van off to the side. It had just stopped raining. It's in the fall. Beautiful foliage. Although I had photos of this monument from earlier trips, I thought this will make a great photo. I get my camera out. I go to press the shutter, and the camera turns off. I could not take a picture of the monument. This is just weird. Batteries are fine. Camera had been fine. I'd had a similar experience in a haunted building in Gettysburg about 3 days before. And I'm thinking, this is weird. I just kept pressing the shutter. Finally did get a couple shots. So we leave. Of course, the song was playing, Sweet Home Alabama, while this is going on. So I drive the short distance to Little Round Top, which these soldiers attacked. And I go up to the 20th Maine Monument. That's the famous unit that held Little Round Top, the left flank of the Union Army, a very, very famous part of the fight. I go to take a picture of the 20th Maine Monument, and my camera turned off every time I pressed the shutter. The weird thing was I could turn, look down the hill toward where the Alabamians came from, take any picture I wanted. Could not take the 20th Maine. As it turned out, as long as we were on Little Round Top, I could not take a picture of any Union monument. Once we got off Little Round Top, the camera worked fine. something. I turn on the song Sweet Home Alabama on the CD, and I read off names. I had found out that I had family members in the Alabama Brigade that fought at Gettysburg. I didn't know their exact relationship. Some of the names I didn't know for sure even were related, but I knew at least some of them were. So while I'm reading these names, my grandson took 15 pictures. 3 of them had orbs.
Okay.
I turn off the music. We both take more pictures, no orbs. We drive the short distance to Little Round Top. I stop, turn off the van, go to take pictures. My camera will not work. My grandson took 5 pictures in quick succession. When he looked at the screen, he flipped out. He said, "Grandpa, look at this. The first picture, there were 8 orbs. And these photos are in the book. There are 8 orbs, and they even have tails. They look like they're converging near a couple of trees in front of us. And the next 4 pictures he took, there's an orangish, yellowish, reddish mist, and it grows with each shot. These were not visible to the naked eye."
Right, it never is. It never is. Well, in most cases, anyways.
But later on, I found out in research, and this was after the book came out, it was some pretty intensive family research. My great-great-grandfather, which would be 4 greats to Connor, was captured pretty much right at that spot. 15th Alabama attacking the 20th Maine. I've always been fascinated with Little Round Top since I was a kid. I never understood why, other than it was a fascinating battle, but I was always fascinated with the 20th Maine.
Right.
No clue that I had family, and I had some great uncles in that brigade as well. That was pretty impressive to me, that connection. Like, wow.
Right. I wanted to ask you, like, when you see all these, you describe all these photographs of orbs and stuff like that, do you believe that a single orb is an actual spirit, or do you think it's like clusters of them that get together to materialize into a spirit? What is your theory on orbs?
Well, I know that orbs are very controversial. I'm a newspaper man. I have taken photos professionally. As a matter of fact, I could have chosen to get a degree in photojournalism had I wanted to, but I went for straight journalism but took all the courses. Other than perhaps during a snowstorm or rainstorm, like at a sporting event with flash, I never get orbs in photos.
Interesting.
At Gettysburg, and I had another experience with my wife just last fall where we just maybe 15 orbs in any given photo, only in one particular spot where it was a unit that I did not know when I first visited that there were men from my area there in that unit. So I do think that orbs definitely in some cases are paranormal. I know there are naturally occurring dust particles, but...
Yeah, see, I've done experiments too, like with orbs to try to debunk them or authenticate them. I've actually taken like spray bottles and, where you could put it on like the mist setting and you can spray. And then if you take a picture right away, like the mist in the air, you'll be surprised what kind of orbs you can get. But there's a difference though when you're out in the field and you're actually investigating and you're in a dry area, number one, and there's no dust or anything like that. You get these beautiful, odd-colored shape orbs. There's just no describing what they are. And it's weird because a lot of them appear to have faces in them. And the ones that, that I experimented with, I could never replicate a face of any kind in an orb, ever. Now, in the field, I've seen it many times.
I have, as a matter of fact, I'm so taken by the picture, I have it here at my desk. My wife and I were on Barlow's Knoll, which actually is where Malin Briggs was shot and captured on the first day's fight. A unit regiment in the same brigade was a German regiment, the 107th Ohio. These poor guys were treated horribly. Their brigadier general was an Easterner and hated the Germans. But I'll story short here, I had some experiences in this unit's positions before, so I had a K2 meter. I would have had a ghost box there, but it got taken here at the house. We talked earlier about items moving. I've never found my ghost box. The things were all together, and they all got dispersed, and I found the other items, but not the ghost box. But I had my K2 meter, and I had a little recorder. So I'm standing at the 107th position, and my wife's taking pictures. She got incredible numbers of orbs while I'm talking, to these guys. Hey, were you treated unfairly? Was your colonel treated unfairly? Are you here with us? But in one particular instance, I had my K2 meter in front of me, and I said, I have this box here. If you can touch this box and make the needle move, I will know you're here. And I said, I'm going to count to 3. And when I counted to 3, the needle moved. My wife took a picture at the same time, and there was a bright orb in front of me right above the K2 meter.
Isn't that interesting?
And this is not a dust orb. I mean, you can even kind of see from the placement, that no, this orb is not close to the camera. This orb is in front of me.
That, it's weird because there was this one time we were doing an investigation out at Gretchen's Lock, a local park where we're at. There's a lot of haunted legends down there. And we had a K2 meter, of course. We had the PSB7 spirit box. We had all kinds of stuff, temperature gauge, like you were talking about, the laser thing, the infrared, or not the infrared, but the laser thing, you know what I mean, right? Spectacle, whatever that is. We actually got something captured there, and when we were getting these temperatures, we were moving the K2 meter up and down, and in this one area, it would go all the way to red. It would go all the way to red, and so somebody said, take a picture, and this is actually in my documentary, too, that I made, and they took a picture, and right there at the K2 meter is a huge orb. It's just amazing that it was definitely influencing the equipment somehow.
And that's pretty much what happened with me at the 107th Ohio position.
Right. What do you think happens when we die, man? I mean, what comes to your mind when you hear about that? I mean, do we go to a different dimension? Are we stuck? Do we just roam around? I mean, where are these spirits coming from?
It's ironic that you asked me that because I'm currently working on my follow-up book to Gettysburg, and that's one of the topics that I'm tackling, and I've been doing a lot of reading about the near-death experiences.
Interesting.
As a matter of fact, I'm just currently finishing a book by a medical doctor who had a near-death experience, and she was so moved that she wrote a book about it.
Right.
But these things are so common that people see. I hope the clock's not too...
No, that's fine. It's actually kind of cool sounding.
Yeah, I usually leave it on. People have commented on it when I've been on other shows. They said, yeah, that's kind of neat. But,
I like that sound.
They do believe that there is an energy that our soul, look at, pretty much every culture that's left a written record, believes in the soul, in spirits, in ghosts, and I think there are cases where in situations of sudden or unexpected death, or maybe that spirit is tied. I don't know that the spirit's always there. If it just comes and goes, I don't know, but I'm sure that there is something in us that survives. This isn't all there is. I'm firmly convinced of that the evidence is there and it's overwhelming.
Right. And, they've actually done studies, like scientists and doctors have done studies. And what's so weird is at the moment of death, when somebody dies, their brain activity actually speeds up for a minute. There's like a spark or something that goes on inside the brain. And I know it's a Hollywood movie, Flatliners, that just came out, a remake of the older version of it. But they talk about that exact same thing, how there is a spark an activity in the brain at the moment of death, which makes me believe, or not believe, wonder, it makes me wonder, is that an actual, like, near-death experience? Well, I mean, of course it's a near-death experience, but is it actually something spiritual, or is it something, I don't know, just like some physical chemical in your brain that's actually doing that?
I know some in the medical profession kind of poo-poo the idea of the spiritual aspect of it. They think it is just a chemically induced hallucination, something physical in the brain. But I don't know, just what I read and just the commonality of all this and the light and the love and the communication without sound, just so consistent. I mean, hundreds of cases. And, to me, a lot of times people come back and they feel compelled to share this so that people know that there's more.
Right, right. What are your thoughts and theories on actual, pursuing ghosts, ghost hunting? Because a lot of biblical people out there will say, oh, you can't do that, they're demons, ghosts are demons. I mean, it does say in the Bible that the dead know nothing at all, which, I mean, I don't want to offend anybody, but when it comes to the Bible, there's a lot of things that I just simply do not agree with. And that being one of them, because, we're capturing these EVPs. We're getting direct answers. It isn't like it's always, just a voice that says hello or something like that. Like you were talking about something earlier where you were asking specific questions and got a specific answer. There's a connection there. With
Most definitely. And I've talked to, a number of people, to ministers, to people who are deeply religious. I mean, I was raised a Baptist. My grandfather was a Baptist minister. I personally see no problem, no conflict. Some people do. I gave a talk here in my hometown once to a Rotary Club, and a minister that I always respected, thought was very open-minded, was openly hostile to my talk. I thought, well, what can you do? But no, I know there are people who hold that. I am not one of them. Actually, I think this lends credence to, the biblical belief in the soul and then afterlife.
Right. Now, what do you think about, like, ways of communicating to the dead, the different types? Like, some people use EVP, some people use K2 meters, while other people use what they call a Ouija board. And everybody seems to be so negative against the Ouija board. What's your take on that?
Myself, I do not use a Ouija board. I personally have gotten great communications. I have not done a lot of investigating. When I have, I've been fortunate at times to be with some very talented, experienced people. I have gotten very clear answers with dowsing rods, with K2 meters, and ghost box and EVP. The same time I told you about the 107th Ohio position where I got my wife captured the orb right when I got the needle to move on the K2. A little bit after that, we were trying for EVPs, and this was being a German regiment. My wife is almost pure German heritage, and she says, I'm German. I'm proud of my heritage. Are you guys proud of being German?
Hey, I'm German.
And a very clear yeah on EVP.
That's interesting.
The energy was palpable. We got clusters of orbs. Just I could feel it, very deeply feel the energy.
Wow. I will tell you this. There have been times where I've done EVP sessions and I've got the most negative, vulgar responses that you could ever imagine. Like, cussing you out, literally. I've literally had that. And people might think, oh, he's making it up. But like you, Don, unless you have your own personal experience, there's always doubt in your mind, no matter what anybody says to you. But when you have your own experience and you know that that's real, you know that that's real. And
that is, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it was just bizarre. I mean, it would be like, F you, get the F out, a lot of get outs we've had. Now, I will say a lot of that was when we were investigating at cemeteries. I don't know if that's like a resting spot and maybe they felt disrespected that we were there. I don't know.
Yeah, I've gotten with a ghost box at Barlow's Knoll. I was trying to make connection with the 75th Ohio Regiment, which was Malin Briggs' unit. A friend is with me, and I'm asking, is anyone with us? I got a yes. Oh, well, who's with us? Christopher. And this is very clear. And I said, okay, Christopher, what's your full name? And Christopher Burb says, I'm sorry, Christopher, I can't understand it. Christopher Burb. And like, okay, well, were you hurt, Christopher? You know, yes. Well, where were you hit? A long answer. I said, I'm sorry, Christopher, I can't understand you. Where were you hit? In the arm. Where are you from, Christopher? Couldn't understand it. From Ohio. Nothing. And I ran through all the Union regiments on the hill, and my friend says, well, it was the Georgia Brigade that overran this position. Maybe he was a Confederate. I said, Christopher, are you from Georgia? And very loud, the loudest I've ever gotten anything on a ghost box is, I am. And then nothing. We couldn't get another peep out of it.
Wow.
The part of my focus in the book is exactly what you were saying about until you have your own experience. And that's really my take, my personal take. Yeah, this may sound crazy, and I write about grappling with should I even address this because people think I'm nuts. And I said, no, I'm a journalist. This happened to me. You know, I'm writing about it. It's true. Believe it. And, you know, this is why I believe it. And that really is the focus and the gist of the book.
Interesting. Very interesting. I wanted to ask you this too, Don, because believe it or not, we're actually flying right to the show here. What is your opinion on, like, I just had a lady on, we spoke about angels and stuff like that. Do you believe that spirits could act as angels, or do you believe that they are completely different things, just you and I that have passed on?
I have read accounts of angels. When my dear grandmother passed, we traveled down to Alabama. My wife was with me, and they were in her bedroom. I was not there for this, but several of her daughters and granddaughters or in-laws, in my wife's case, were there, and they actually saw a figure in her bedroom floating above her bed, and they felt it was an angel.
Okay.
That to have this many people see that, and these aren't people who are going to be just coming up with something weird out of the blue.
Right. Have you ever actually had something, or think that you had something follow you home from doing what you do?
I have not had that happen.
Okay.
I know other people who have, investigators I've talked to. I have not been aware of anything like that.
Interesting. What about, let me see here, dreams. This is an interesting one right here. I got to share this real quick. Before my mother will be dead on the 24th of this month for 1 year. So it's been a pretty rough year. But the weird thing about it was before she died, like when she was living, she explained to me that she's like, Sean, I had this dream. And I'm like, oh, okay, what was it about? And she said, I was at this brick wall. And she said that she was pushing on the bricks, and the bricks were really, really loose. And they were like falling through, or she could pull them out. And every time she did that, a glimmer of very, very brilliant, colorful light would come out, okay? And she said that she just was so attracted to that light, and she kept digging and digging and digging till finally she could put her whole body through the wall and go inside. But right before she got inside, her husband actually came in and woke her up. Now, this is about a week or two before she had passed on. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, I have actually a chapter in my book about dreams. I had a coworker who was visibly moved by the fact that an older gentleman he had worked for as like a summer job when he was in college. He had a dream that this gentleman came to see him, and lo and behold, the gentleman's obituary was in that day's paper. He had died about the time that my friend had the dream. Another coworker who dreamed that her mother-in-law came to see her, and she found out the next morning her mother-in-law had died in the night.
Ah, wow.
My most profound dream, and one of my most profound occurrences of my life, was shortly after we had moved to this house. I dreamed that I encountered my grandfather, who's been dead since the early 70s, outside a restaurant that my uncle had owned. And it's not been that restaurant for a long time, but my grandfather was dressed all in white, which he never dressed like. He ushered me inside. We sat down at a table in the restaurant. There were two women I did not recognize, dressed in like probably 1950s or 60s clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking amongst themselves, but I couldn't hear what they're saying. And my grandfather then looks at me, and he points down to his crotch. And I'm thinking, well, Grandpa had a pretty racy sense of humor, but I was young when he died. He didn't often share it with me, so my perception was he was telling me a dirty joke. Well, for one, I just don't dream about my grandfather hardly ever. We were very close, but I woke up and that dream was just like so real. I thought, what in the world? Well, I got to work a little later that morning, and I got a call from my mother. And he said, Don, we're up at the hospital. Your dad was very, very sick. We rushed him in, and they were taking him to a specialist in a nearby town. And here he had a bladder infection that had turned to sepsis.
Oh, okay.
She is trying to tell me, well, he'll be fine. You just stay at work. And I knew immediately what that dream was about.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, Mom, I will be there. And it turns out it was a very life-threatening illness, and my help with being there with my parents that day was invaluable.
Yes, I could imagine that. I wanted to add to my story that I was saying about my mother and her the dream that she had was after she had passed on. Now this is after she had died. I had another dream about her, and in the dream she came to me, and I knew she was dead, but she looked like she was in her 30s again. She died at the age of 60, so she looked like she was in her 30s, and she told me that it was very weird that dying was a process. And I was like, well, and there was no fear whatsoever. Like, I knew she was dead. It was like it was all normal to me. Like, there was no, oh my God, you're dead. It wasn't like that. It was just like, I knew she was gone. And she said, I said, Mom, what is it like to die? And she said, well, I fell in love with the Kellers. And it really makes me wonder if you see these colors that she was seeing in her dream, that somehow whenever you pass on, it's just really bizarre thoughts, man. I mean, if we could go on forever talking about stories like this.
Oh, yeah, the dreams. I had a recurring dream for many years. One of my best friends was killed in an auto accident.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
And I would dream these most vivid, memorable dreams that I would run into him, and we would have a talk, and it was always about me. He was always wanting to know how things were going with my life, and it was the same kind of thing. It's like I knew he was gone, but it seemed so realistic. Well, one time I had the dream. I ran into him in downtown Bryan, only this time he didn't ask about me. And I was asking about him. I said, well, how are you? He says, hey, I'm all right, Don. I'm all right. And he said, I got to go. I'll see you. And I knew as I was having the dream that I would never see him again in the dreams, and I have not.
Interesting. Now, we don't got much more time. Again, I wanted you to tell people where they could actually get your books at, for those that are listening right now and those that will be listening on the podcast. Where do they go? How do they get them? What's your websites?
Yeah, you can go to really any bookstore. If they don't have it in stock, they can order it. You can get it at Amazon. It's available as an ebook. You can also get it. You can go to the website for the book, www.imetaghost.com, and that also would have a link to fatedbanner.com. Some of my other books, non-paranormal books, but yeah, the book's really easy to get. If you would like a signed copy, just go to the I Met a Ghost site, and also when you order the book, also send a message, and that'll get to me, and I can sign and even personalize the book. So.
Oh, okay, nice. Very good. I wanted to ask you this too, Dawn, before we get off here. What is the most significant thing that stands out to you about Gettysburg, whether it be a haunted tale, something that happened to you, or just something that happened there? What's the biggest attraction to you when it comes to Gettysburg?
Even before I really was pursuing the paranormal, the energy there. And I wish I had the quote in front of me, but Joshua Chamberlain, the commander of the 20th Maine, went on to quite an illustrious political career. During one of the monument dedications, he talked about the fact that the spirits still dwell there. And I think that's very true. And then for me to realize I had a lifelong fascination with Little Round Top, and to find out that my family fought there. My great-great-grandfather was captured there. He escaped from a prisoner of war camp and made it back to his regiment. To me, that is just, kind of in awe of that.
Has this changed your life forever, your experience at Gettysburg?
Yes, it has. I say particularly the Malin Briggs connection, and actually, I even was able to find his photograph and research, and his photos on the cover of the book.
Now, how does that make you feel when you actually see, which, by the way, your cover's on www.mysticparanormal.net on our website. What does that make you feel like, though, when you have a spiritual connection to someone and then you see their photograph?
It basically, had I been walking, it would have stopped me in my tracks, but I caught my breath just in awe that I was able to find that and to see him and look into his eyes. And, yeah.
It's strange. I know what you mean. Because there's been legends that I've investigated, and I have to say, man, just whenever you could get an actual photograph of someone that you think that you've captured on EVP or something like that, it makes it even more significant. There's a bigger connection there, without a doubt.
There really is.
Yeah, there really is. And we're just about out of time here, so if there's anything else that you would like to say to the audience that's listening right now, Dawn, go ahead and do it. You can go ahead and close it out for us pretty much.
Yeah, I would like to encourage folks, if you have questions for me or stories, particularly Gettysburg or Civil War related experiences, feel free. You can look me up on Facebook. You can go to my website, contact me there at the imetaghost.com website. I'm always interested in hearing from people, their own experiences, answering questions. One of the things I've found is when I've given talks, I've been blown away by the number of people who hesitantly, after a meeting when no one else is around, will share their own experience, think that they're losing their mind, and the fact of being able to give reassurance makes me feel good. So yeah, I'm definitely exploring the field, and I love to hear from folks.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dawn, I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you get to escape some of the winter weather coming, but it looks like we're going to get blasted by it. So stay safe, my friend, and I really wish you the best and success with your book that you have out now and the book that you got coming out.
Yes, well, I appreciate that, and the best of luck to you, and continued success. success with your show.
I really appreciate it, my friend. Hey, you have a good night tonight, okay?
You too.
All right, thank you.